We're going to hear from the institutions in the Eurogroup meeting where we are. There were 15 milestones that had to be settled. I'm hearing some optimistic news, but I want to hear it directly from the institutions. And on that basis, the next disbursement can take place.
So Greece has
what about the IMF
transfer?
I don't know. I'll have to hear from the institutions.
What about the IMF involvement? You've been in Washington, you've been in the annual meeting. There's been some talk if they're going to get in the portal with money, without money. What's going on?
No, the intention is for the IMF to be involved, to go to their board, and the involvement would also be financial. That's the starting point of our discussion, always has been. And the IMF has also denied these rumors, so I don't know where they came from. Perhaps they came from the fact that inside the IMF there is a discussion going on about a new instrument, a new procedure. But that hasn't been decided yet, and it's not specific for Greece. So,
will there be any discussions on possible debt relief by the end of the year?
Not today.
Not today?
No.
So you'll have this discussion at what point, after the November review?
No, we had a discussion on debt relief in May, and so what's on the table is the May agreement.
Is there going to be any silence?
Hello.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. How's Greece?
How's Greece? I think Greece is a lot better. I think they are returning to growth, which is very important, and confidence is returning to the Greek economy.
Will you approve
the next 2.8 billion euros at this meeting?
That depends on whether Greece has fulfilled all its commitments. So we were waiting for 15 actions to be taken. We'll hear today how far they are, and if it's all done, then we can transfer the next set of
Like straight
funds.
to after today, or when will the money be transferred?
Oh, you're asking much too much detail.
And
Step by step.
can we go straight back to Greece, and try with the IMF? Since the IMF hasn't decided yet whether they will take part in the third Greek program, can you just explain us a bit where we are in the discussions and how you're going to convince the IMF people in order to stay on board, or whether there's another chance to take part in this program?
I'm not sure I understand the question. In the Eurogroup in May, we said, yes, there is a debt problem, and yes, we are, if necessary, prepared to take measures, some in short term, some at the end of the program in 2018, and we can have a commitment for the long term also. And the IMF will have to make its own calculations on the basis of what we have agreed in May, and then make up their minds. And I would very much hope, because that is what they agreed to, that they will go to the boards before the end of the year. That's all I can say.
There's been a suggestion the IMF
I'm not going to reopen debt talks every month.
Not the debt talks,
There's a
but
suggestion the IMF could take on an advisory role
Exactly.
rather than be a full participant. Would that satisfy you, or do you think that it is crucial that they have an active participant role in the bailout?
I believe a spokesperson of the IMF has denied these rumors, so what should I add to that? Clear the ground for the mission to return to Athens, and in the Eurogroup we will discuss whether we've come to that point, because that is my goal, to get the mission back in Athens on the ground to talk about all the difficult stuff that still needs to be sorted out. We've covered a lot of ground, so we'll see in the Eurogroup if we've done enough.
Again, you're positive that the IMF is also on board and the mission will be concluded in time for parliamentary procedures, because that's also an issue.
That's a lot of questions at the same time. So the position of the IMF is unchanged. They are very willing to participate in the program, are in principle prepared to go to the board, but their demand is and always has been that it is a serious program with in-depth reforms and sustainable debt. So all of that needs to be sorted out before we can bring them on board, definitely. That is my target. I'm not doing this exercise to take another step as Europeans without the IMF. The next step will have to be with the IMF.
yes, is there a deadline?
Not really. The liquidity issues, as you know, are not substantial and they won't occur until the summer. So in other words, there's no acute need for money. Economically, of course, it's important that the stability which we have achieved in Greece and the recovery economically continues, and therefore it would be useful if it all happens quite quickly.
So you don't see
Simply for stability reasons and confidence reasons.
So you don't see any implication from parliamentary procedures, because you have elections and the French have elections as well.
Yeah.
They need to approve, I suppose, the deal afterwards.
Well, there's always an election somewhere in Europe, so it doesn't stop me, it doesn't speed me up. I want to do it as quickly as possible, but it still takes, I mean, we're talking about complex reforms. I mean, I know from experience in the Netherlands, if you try to do a tax reform and a pension reform and labor market reforms, and you have to do all of these at the same time, that's hard work. So let's be realistic. As soon as we get the mission back to Athens, and that's my first goal, then there's still a lot of work to be done.
How close we are for the mission to...
I'll tell you after the Eurogroup.
On Greece, you talked about the need to get the IMF on board.
Die associations more general,
Bailout without debt relief.
Today we will just discuss to get the mission of the institutions back to Athens. And that requires agreement on substantial reforms and additional measures to be taken. The mission will then go down to Athens, sort all of that out, and by the time they come back, we will look at the whole package, including debt, but it won't be on the agenda today.
So that suggests no conclusion on the Greek bailout today. Is there a sense of urgency here to get a conclusion, though, before the March 15th elections in your own country?
No, it's completely independent of elections. There's always an election somewhere in Europe, so we simply have to keep moving ahead. We've had a lot of talks in the last couple of weeks, so I see progress. I'm going to find out today whether that progress is enough for the mission to return to Athens, and then I think more work will have to be done. But it's a good step, it's a positive step. So let's wait for the outcome of the Eurogroup.
Do you think the lingering Greek debt issue, though, has concerned voters in your country? When you look at your party in the opinion polls, do you think the fact that you are such a symbolic image tied to the Greek problem, is that a concern when you look at your polls?
Not really. A lot of the electorate in the Netherlands supports my serious approach to this issue. So I will continue to follow up on it in a very serious way. And I think it's in our joint interests for the Greeks, the whole eurozone and the Netherlands that we have a stable recovery in Greece. And that's what we're doing. And anyone who wants to talk about crisis can talk to someone else because the Greek economy is gradually recovering. And what we need to do is to strengthen that and to give that more opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to do.
You've spoken out before that you were somewhat frustrated with the IMF's own economic assessments about Greece. Do you think the rest of the creditors in the IMF are moving closer here, closing the gap on perceptions of Greece? I guess if you can give us a better idea of what it will take to get the IMF on board.
Well, the IMF has been clear right from the beginning that for them to formally become a part of the program again, they would need serious reforms in the tax system, the pension system, the labor market, and a sustainable debt outlook. As you know, we've taken a number of debt relief measures. The last ones were only last January, another package of debt relief, and we will come back to that at the end of the program. So at the moment, we need to concentrate on these deep reforms that the IMF quite rightly asks of the Greek government.
And what happens if the Greek government proves resistant to pass those additional reforms?
I'm not going to speculate. Let's wait for today's meeting. Bye.
Thank you.
In relation to Greece, the IMF has said it's either deeper cuts at the pensions or deeper cuts on the debt. Are the European partners on the same page with the IMF in respect to Greece? And do you expect that everybody will come back to Athens this week in order to conclude the review?
We're going to listen to the institutions today in the meeting, and then we'll see how we move forward. But let me make quite clear that we need credible and sustainable pension reforms, and the budget needs to be on track also for the medium term. And that is not just something that concerns the IMF, it is something that concerns all the institutions and the Eurogroup. We need to stick to the agreement that we had this summer. Now, how to do that? How the pension reform will work out, what fiscal measures are needed, Maybe we'll hear more today, and I'll tell you afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are we basically with the Greek program? Do you think that it's, let's say, feasible to get it done in the next couple of weeks? Are we going to be ready for the 5th of December? And what if we are not ready?
Well, today we're going to hear from the institutions what progress has been made. As you know, they are in the second review, and a number of reforms are part of that second review. So we'll hear today how much progress there is, and then I'll be able to answer your question, will we be ready on the 5th of December? For the 5th of December, I think it's important to make as much progress as possible. So the IMF has as much clarity as possible on a number of reforms, on the fiscal trajectory for the coming years. And of course, then the next step will be for the IMF to go to their board before the end of the year. So that's my purpose for the 5th of December. But today we'll just hear on the progress made.
So whatever happens, is it the prerequisite that the IMF gets to its board this year and not next year?
This is what they promised us in May.
Okay, okay.
It was, of course, part of an agreement in which the eurogroup said we are prepared to do more in terms of debt relief. And we listed a number of options. And on that basis, the IMF said they are prepared to go to the board before the end of the year.
So is there going to be more clarity also in the medium-term measures in this year, in the course of this year?
I think that the clarity in May was already quite strong. So let's see.
So no further commitment on that, on the medium term.
Certainly not today.
This year, though, I mean, as part of an agreement on the second review for Greece, which everyone hopes will be done by December, or at least in December, is it realistic at all to think that the euro area would make a concrete commitment to medium-term debt relief for Greece, or is that something for another time?
Well, look, in May already we said there are a number of possible measures for the medium term, and the extent to which they are necessary. It's impossible to determine right now. It depends on what happens between now and the second half of 2018 in terms of economic growth, interest rates, inflation, and of course the commitment from the Greek government. So that kind of specific clarity on what is actually in the medium-term package, it's impossible to give. And that was also understood by the IMF in May when we said we can only put a figure on it when we are in the second half of 2018. Anyway, this kind of conversation we will pick up again